My name is Matthew Hendrickson. I'm the lead bike planner for the Department of Transportation. My role is that I'm responsible for the city's bike program, and my job is to make Baltimore a safe place to get around by bike. And our goal, as far as the city's perspective, is that we want this city to be a place for anyone and everyone, no matter your age or ability, to feel comfortable and safe and have fun on a bicycle getting around town. And so that is our goal. So just imagine you going for a ride with a parent or grandparent, and vice versa. If you have small kids or grandchildren, making sure that they're able to get around the city. So that's kind of our goal. And again, thank you for being here. I will say this is our second meeting, and so we can kind of go to the next slide. In a series of several that we will be having for this project. So I just kind of want to go back and kind of, show what we've heard and what we heard from you last month. Our first meeting was on January 21st. We had about 70 folks join us. We're almost at that point right now at that meeting. And then again, we had some technical issues. So we wanted to kind of make sure that people had the same experience. And so we added another survey to the web page. And we want to make sure that this is accessible to as many people as possible. So providing different ways for people to get involved. So we have a call-in number here. Folks that are calling in, thank you. If you're not able to see, we're going to try to describe, what is going on. Provide the web page as an option to be able to get in touch with us, as well as a phone-in number where you can leave messages and our email. So that there are, again, many ways for you guys to get in touch with us, and so we can get in touch with you and incorporate your feedback. We also have a comment form on the webpage where you can make a comment and kind of let us know what you're feeling, ask us questions. We'll get back to you. Our webpage is baltimorebikeways.com/Wolfe-Washington-Bikeway /. So if you just search baltimorebikeways.com, you'll find us. I promise you. We had 18 comments from the comment form, including the meeting attendees and survey. I will say they all kind of had the same themes of overall traffic safety and traffic calming. Parking is very important, and that we need safe ways for people to get around by bike, for people walking, people with disabilities, and again, overall safety of the roadways. So that's what we heard. Next, please. And again, this is our second of 4 meetings. We're hoping to have another in the spring. We are in a quick timeline, so we've had some fast turnover, and especially as we kind of move through these platforms, we're learning a lot. And again, we just want to give you guys as many opportunities to provide feedback. And so this is overall a design, a feasibility and design. So we're looking at this corridor, what makes sense, where it will go. And Melissa's telling me to speed up. So, but I will say there will be more opportunities, and we'll be bringing back concepts for you in the spring. And also want to be available to any neighborhood associations or public meetings, whether it's virtual or social distance and safe. We'd love to participate in those as well. Just want to introduce our team very quickly. We have both DOT staff, our liaison team, our bike program team, as well as our consultant team that is helping support this project from RK&K. They will have an indication on their name. We're not going to get into small groups, but you'll see DOT or RK&K in front of their names within the participants. And so you'll see that as we kind of address any questions or concerns. So thank you. Next. And then just a quick refresher. We talked a lot about this in the first meeting, but at least give you guys a view of the corridor. So from Alisana to Sinclair Lane, basically connecting Clifton Park to Fells Point. And so a very important north-south connection, really important corridor for accessing so many great neighborhoods, schools, amenities, hospitals, public services, and jobs and opportunities. And again, this is really important, especially in the bike context, because this is a very dependent city on transit. Over a third of our residents do not have access to a motor vehicle. And so we want to provide choices for folks besides the car. So transit is a really important one, but it's really timely as far as, or I should say, this is much more important now in the context of COVID, where we need as many choices as possible for people to feel safe and comfortable and getting around. And we're also seeing a huge increase as far as traffic incidents and speeding. So that traffic safety is very important for us, as well as an explosion in people biking. And so we're seeing a lot more of that because it's just a really great thing to do. It's safe and fun and active, especially when we're all being at home and trying to get out. So the context is very important. And this has been many years in the making. This was part of our bike master plan in 2015. This is our separated bike lane network plan within 2017. We had highlighted Wolfe Street as that connection. And as you can see, kind of continuing that up to Clifton Park. And again, what are the other places within the overall bike network of the city to provide those safe pathways to get around the city? And it's also part of our, kind of complete streets program. And I will say, we had highlighted Wolfe in our previous planning processes. We want to get your feedback as far as the best place to access this corridor through this plan. And so that's why it's the Wolfe and Washington plan. Again, choice is really important for transportation in a lot of different ways. Next, please. And so that's, again, why we're kind of going through this process to hear from you. You guys are the experts of your neighborhood, of your areas. We think it's really important, and that's why we've highlighted these two streets. And we want to deliver on the feedback that we've gotten from you as far as that traffic safety, making it a safe place for people to ride, to walk, and again, access the places that they love. So I'm going to turn it over to our consultant team, Melissa Miklas from RK&K, who's going to be walking us through the evening and kind of exploring what we'll be talking about tonight. Thank you all for being here.
Thanks, Matt. All right, guys, here we go. So we thought we'd start off with just setting expectations. So in case you guys need to get up and get a sip of water or let the dog out, whatever you need to do, at least you know what we're about to get into this evening. So the first thing that we want to do is talk a little bit about what we heard from you. So if you were with us in our last meeting, just a quick summary of that, and then a quick summary from the survey that we had posted on the project website. So then we're going to roll into our design approach. So how in the world do we figure out the configuration of a bicycle facility? What are your values that we use when we're trying to weigh the differences in the facilities? And what are the trade-offs that we have? What do we need to consider? So we'll go through a process, talk a little bit about those values, and then we want to hear from you guys. So we have a little exercise where we're going to give a presentation, give you guys a few minutes to speak and ask questions, and then do that a few times, and then a mapping exercise at the end. So thanks for joining us, and we're looking forward to getting into this. So just rules of engagement here. If everyone could remember to mute when they're not speaking, that would be very fantastic. If you unmute yourself, for those of you who are on the phone, you would hit *6 to unmute. And then when you're finished speaking, you would hit *6 again, and then that would remute you. Alternatively, if you have a smartphone or something with a mute button, you can use that as well. So when we are chatting together, let's be respectful of our neighbors. Let's stay on topic for the meeting. And we'll all get through the exercises that we have tonight and get you up to speed on what we are doing. So as Matt said, we do want to make sure that your voice is heard. So we understand that some of you are on different devices. Maybe you don't see the chat function. Maybe you're on the phone. But just a little reminder that we do have, as Matt said, an email that you can email directly, and we'll say these at the end of the meeting. We also have the website that Matt read off just a few moments ago, and a phone number that you could call in. So as a reminder on the phone number, that is 443-984-4095. So Nathan is putting that in the chat window, and we'll say this 2 more times during the meeting. So let's get into that summary of what we did last time. So if you weren't with us, We talked a little bit about what makes a great street. We learned about different ways to design for bikes, the variety of bicycle facilities that there are. And then we started to introduce you to an exercise of fit. So if you were with us, you saw quite a lot of sections the last time you were here. So the first thing we did was, what do you love about the Wolfe and Washington corridors? And what we heard was local restaurants, walkable sidewalks, the connection to neighborhoods, parks, and places. So we really want to make sure that when we are going through and designing this space, that we're celebrating all of those great things. Second exercise we did was a visual preference survey. So what that means is we had some pictures up of shared lane markings, bicycle lanes, buffered bike lanes, cycle tracks, one-way and two-way, and contraflow bike lanes. And everyone voted on those basically through the lens of safety. So what would make you feel safe in the street environment if you were a car, if you were walking, if you were biking, if you were approaching transit? Which one of these felt the most safe? And so the majority of everyone, 86%, said the protected bicycle facility was the one that they would feel most comfortable with their children, with their grandmother, with their friends. So the last thing that we did was we introduced you to a smattering of an exercise of fit. And so there were many sections, and you'll see them again tonight, where we just said, you know, when we start designing, we're not sure what it should be. But one of the first things that we like to do is just see what's going to fit. So if we follow industry standards for things, what can we fit within our curb to curb? Because we want to work within that space to make sure that we have the budget to implement this project. So let's talk a smidge about the survey summary. So again, you know, you guys are pretty consistent. Again, the walkable sidewalks, street trees, connections to neighborhoods and parks, local restaurants, that all came through in the survey results. And then again, just as we were chatting in the first meeting, it seemed that the two-way cycle track was preferred. It's just the rest of the bits of the street is what we need to figure out around that. So that was reflected on Wolfe as well as Washington. But I think we all know that if we have a two-way cycle track on Wolfe or a two-way cycle track on Washington, we don't need them both. So that's fantastic, because if we do that, then we can do a lot of traffic calming measures on the other street so that we still get the benefit of a transformation and a more safe and comfortable environment on both Wolfe and Washington. So we hear a little bit more about that in a few minutes. So just to bring you all up to speed really quickly on some of the things that we talked about last time, I was talking about that exercise and fit. And so if you were with us last time and went through these exercises, you saw all these sections. So what you're seeing here at the top is we presented what the existing cross section of the street is. So buildings, sidewalk, parking, travel lanes, parking, sidewalk, building. So we looked at that. And then everything you see here are just ways that we can change what goes on inside of that curb to curb area with paint, and how we could configure a bicycle facility. And there's so many different facilities. So essentially what this boiled down to was we had 2 and 2 bike lane options, 2 on Wolfe, 2 on Washington. We had a buffered bike lane option, a couple of those on Wolfe. We had a one-way cycle track option for Wolfe, and then two-way cycle track options on both corridors. So this is just us, you know, putting the puzzle pieces together and trying to see what fits. The sections that you saw at the bottom were options for converting the streets to be two-way streets. So we're not going to dive too deeply into those, but we figured if we were going to put the cycle track on one street, should we imagine what it would look like if we wanted to go to two-way circulation for vehicles on the other? So those were there, and we commented on those. But tonight, what we're going to do is we're going to start narrowing down from your values how we could fit this, but also create the place that you all told us you wanted to see. So now we're going to jump into a little bit of a discussion of what those values and considerations are when we're designing for bike facilities. Liz, take it away.
Cool. Okay, so as we said at the last meeting, we asked a series of questions and had a series of discussion that really tried to get to what's important and what's valued by the people who attended and then the people who filled out the survey and otherwise commented. And three really big themes emerged. Everyone is very interested in the street becoming safer. I think that there's an acknowledgement that speeding cars and near misses and crosswalks and other things have made people feel pretty unsafe from a traffic standpoint on both of these corridors. Another thing that was really important, as Melissa mentioned, was neighborhood connectivity, being able to catch the bus on the street, being able to walk to places and get to places that are important to you, very important. And then people commented that parking is very difficult to find in a lot of these neighborhoods. And so maintaining the amount of parking as much as humanly possible is a really important shared value from the participants that we've heard from. So some of the conclusions that we drew from the feedback is that one lane of through travel for motor vehicles might be acceptable if it accomplishes those traffic calming goals, speaking to the street safety, and that it's really important to minimize the parking loss. So if you had to choose between losing a lane of parking and repurposing a lane of for motor vehicle travel, the preference is very much to maintain that parking. And then, as Melissa said, from the people we heard from, the type of facility that felt both safest and most comfortable was the two-way cycle track. So we're going to walk through how we use those values plus some kind of engineering and planning best practices to narrow down that really wide universe of possible cross sections to a more manageable set for your comments. And so in addition to the safety and the parking, we're talking about that question of what fits. And then we're thinking about how to be cost effective and then how to maintain the aspects of community character that are really important to people. So first, I want to talk about why we as transportation engineers and planners are really focused on reducing motor vehicle speeds. So the first thing that we talk about when we talk about safety is this issue of lane width and how it may encourage higher speeds. So we may want to think about narrowing lanes. The reason that we're very obsessed as a profession with this idea of reducing motor vehicle speeds is because it really doesn't take much from the point of view of what cars are capable of to go beyond the limits of our fragile human bodies. As I mentioned in the last meeting, if a pedestrian or a bicyclist is hit by a car that's going 20 miles an hour, they have a 95% chance of surviving that collision. If the car is going 30 miles an hour, that survival chance drops to 55%. And most of these people who do survive will have a really life-altering injury. And this makes sense. It's only in the last couple of 100 years that humans regularly get to these speeds or interact with objects going these speeds. Before the Industrial Revolution, if you wanted to get up to 45 miles an hour, you would basically have to fall off of something tall. And so our bodies just aren't very adapted to that. So lower car speeds are really crucial to safety and to lowering the severity of the crash if a collision occurs. They're also really crucial to making sure that crashes don't happen in the first place. Because if you're going slower, you can brake more easily, you can see what's going on around you, the stopping distance is shorter. In contexts like our city streets where cars and humans regularly interact, a commitment to safety really is a commitment to bringing car speeds to levels that are appropriate for the context. And that's why that this first slide about safety is showing narrow lanes, because that's one of the many tools that our profession has learned over the years can reduce those motor vehicle speeds. And it also creates the opportunity to provide more dedicated space for other modes. There was a school of thought at a time that having wider travel lanes was more safe because cars could stay in them more easily. But it turns out that narrower lanes really slow cars down and make them more careful. Okay, next. So the next thing that can really increase safety, especially for vulnerable road users, and by that I mean any road user that isn't protected from cars by technology. Like if you're in a bus or a car, you have the car itself or the bus itself and the airbags protecting you from it. But if you're walking or if you're biking, you don't have that. So a physical separation between the vulnerable road users and the motor vehicles is a really great way to make things safer. This is why we have curbs and sometimes parking separating pedestrians from the roadway, because we understand that a physical separation is really important and increases safety. Next. We also understand that parked cars need space to open their doors into. So when you park next to the sidewalk, there's that space where the tree pits are, the space where the lamps are, and that's really what you open your door into ideally, so you don't open it right onto someone walking. And when we're planning for dedicated space for bicyclists, it's the same principle, where we want that 2 or 3 feet, and maybe it doesn't have a lamp in it, maybe it has a curb or flex posts or just paint, but it's still space for those car doors to open without hitting someone that it could hurt. So next. Organization is really important for creating safety because it makes the roadway more predictable. So knowing where you're going to see cars, knowing where you're going to see bikes, knowing where pedestrians are crossing, that's very important for road users to be able to avoid conflicts. We've said this several times now, the issue of maintaining parking is very important to people in these neighborhoods. And so minimizing impacts to parking will be a really high priority in the design. Whatever we choose has to fit and has to use space wisely. And we will be, when we're deciding if something fits, using engineering and design best practices, because it's not rocket science to create safe streets and create safe facilities for people biking and people walking, but the details do matter. So it'll be important to follow those best practices and make sure the space really works.
Oh.
When we're talking about buildability here, what we mean is that these are public resources. This is the city's public money. And so we want to build something that has that safety benefit, has that connectivity benefit in a relatively cost-effective way. And what that means most of the time is that we'll try to limit moving the curb line, because when you actually move the curb line and change the sidewalk, there's a lot of extra expense for everything from drainage to just building the new sidewalk space. We heard a lot of value being placed on the community character, sort of what it looks like and what it feels like. And so even once a general cross-section is selected and agreed to, there will be the opportunity to make changes as long as they don't compromise safety on a sort of individual block by block level to make the cross-section appropriate for your neighborhoods. And identifying some of those more detailed places where there can be little changes will be one of the things that future phases of outreach can help inform. So thanks, Melissa.
Yeah, thanks, Liz. That was great. So now we're going to talk a little bit, dive back into those multiple cross sections that we had. The ones that Liz was just showing was just a sample, so she could talk about those bits and pieces of the roadway. So now it's time for your feedback. So we're trying to help you get inside of our brains and all the decisions that we make when we're designing bicycle facilities. So we thought we would walk through this process step by step with you all. So we're going to take a topic or a value by which we evaluate the corridor, and we have 5 of those. I'll talk about those briefly, 2 or 3 minutes, hopefully not that much, and then we're going to open for comment. So what we would like to do is everyone who is in the meeting on a computer or a tablet or your smartphone where you can use the chat, please chat your comments and questions. Nathan has been answering those on the fly as we've been going, and he will continue to do that. But what we'd like to do is for those folks who are on the phone who maybe can't see the presentation, who are listening in, if you would like to make a comment about what topic we're talking about, please hit *6 to unmute yourself and then let us know what your question or comment is. And then *6 again one more time when you're through while Matt or Liz is answering the question. So we're trying to give some priority to the folks on the phone or the folks who don't have chat capabilities. But if you are having trouble with chat and you do know how to raise your hand on the screen, we'll try to call on those folks. But I'm going to try to do a good job of getting us all to dinner or bedtime with kids tonight. So we'll try to keep that to about 5 minutes. So if you don't get the opportunity to raise your hand or unmute yourself with *6, then we'll flash up again and we'll read out again the email, the phone number, and the comment form on the website so that you can contact us. The other thing that we'll be doing is we are going to copy the chat from tonight and post that on the website so that you all can read through some of the questions and answers. So we'll probably group those thematically just so that you can see that consolidated. So we are going to get started, and then when we're ready for hand raising, I'll call on everybody for that. So let's start with safety. This is our first topic. So in our last meeting and just planning for facilities, kind of based on that visual preference survey where we saw that people preferred some sort of separation from vehicles, we wanted to narrow down some of the sections we presented. So I'm going to kind of zoom in and out of my screen a little bit, but we were thinking that if we had options with more protection than just a bike lane in the travelway, something with buffers, that might be preferable. So we thought, can we start narrowing this down? So on Wolfe, we had 2 options that were just traditional bike lanes with no protection. So we thought, what if we take these out of the running and see how this goes? The other cross section that we had that was on Wolfe, we had a bike lane where you had to pass over the bike lane to park your car. So we thought, is that really the safest thing? Do we really want cars going across a bike lane to park? That's, not ideal for the person in the car parking, not super great for the person who is riding their bike in the bike lane. So we thought, well, let's see if we can take those out of the running for now. And we'll go through and we're going to evaluate all of these by topic. So this is our moment for you guys to get involved. And we're just talking about safety. So we're going to keep it to topic, keep it to safety. So we're talking about protecting the bike lane and we're talking about not crossing over the bike lane to park. So just that for right now, we've got 4 more topics. So I'm going to open this up. If there's someone on the phone who needs to *6 and has a comment or a question, we're going to open this up for 5 minutes. And I'll give it just a second, and then we'll go to folks who might be raising their hands and want to share. All right, my phone callers. Okay, I saw Miss Carter, you had your hand raised, ma'am. And she may need some help unmute.
I see Miss Carter. All right. Anyone on our team sees her.
Can you guys hear me?
There
There
we
you
go.
go.
Thank
Yeah.
you.
Hello, hi. I'm sorry, I just had a few things and it was so much to type. My name is Tawanda Carter. I'm the community president of South Clifton Park. I thank you guys for inviting me in this meeting. And I just want you guys to go over it as you go through this thing. So I'm going to put my questions out there. I have a few concerns. One of the things is in Baltimore City, the population of African Americans is 63%. So I want to know how many of the residents there, because they're all African Americans pretty much, door knocks did you guys do? Because you said you did a survey. How many of those residents did you actually survey that live in the community, that asked them their comfortability of a bike lane? How many of them own bikes? How are they going to afford the bikes to ride around in the lane? And did you guys think about, because you said it's funding for it, then the funding to beautify the neighborhood or the upkeep the neighborhood opposed to putting a bike lane? And then another thing you spoke about is safety as far as the travel. And I think I would say as far as safety, we have a lot of red light cameras that we pay for. So then are we going to opt out of the red light cameras because we're putting bikes in for traffic safety, or we're doing both? So that's a lot of concerns I have for that community, because I don't think a bike lane is necessary in that area because we don't ride bikes around there. So you guys go ahead, put me back on mute and finish talking about it.
Thank you, Mrs. Carter, and also great to see you alive here. I know we've been emailing back and forth quite a bit, so pleasure to see you. There's a lot there to unpack. I'm not here to convince you that bike lanes are good or bad. This is a city priority. My job is to make sure that it's safe to provide these options. As far as kind of the door knocking and reaching out specifically to African American communities, as you said, Baltimore City is an African American city, so we're going to do our best as far as consistent and inclusive outreach. And again, I want to say that happy to follow up with you, knowing that because this city, especially during COVID times, we're not able to go out and do our standard typical outreach procedures. So we do have our chief of engagement on this line as well. But it is really important for us to be inclusive, and especially to have those safe options and amenities where we've seen historically communities have been disinvested and segregated because of the built environment, like unsafe roadways, literally separating neighborhoods. That is a focus of us at DOT to address those issues from the past. And again, provide those opportunities where more than a third of our residents do not have access to a car and they need to find other ways to get around. So, and again, Mrs. Carter, we can always, I'm happy to meet with you guys separately. So thank you for those concerns. Are there any other folks or any other questions in the chat that need to be addressed that have not been answered?
Yeah.
Oh, I think we have someone from the phone.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
You're coming in faint.
Hi, I'm Doris Monitorell from the Broadway East community. I guess my question, if I'm hearing you correctly, is that this is a Baltimore City mandate to increase bike lanes. Is that correct?
That's right. It is a city priority. Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so since it is being considered a city priority, and apparently the main thoroughfares are what you are targeting now to change the traffic on, would that be correct?
For this particular project, yes, we're looking at these two streets as the options for this bike facility. And
as we're talking in the chat, there are people who are concerned about biking with their children along these thoroughfares. Have we given consideration to the residents who live along the same thoroughfare who have absolutely no options for parking except in front of their door? And I'm respectful of the city's mandate, but I'm also respectful of the residents who live and have no parking pads in the rear. And they struggle to park each day because we have people who come in to work who also park along the same corridor. So could you shed more light on how the city is attempting to address the mandate for parking changes, including bike lanes, but keeping the residents safe and comfortable with where they currently park?
That's right. I mean, we recognize that parking is very important for the community. I mean, it's park, you know, it's important for the city. What we're trying to present here is kind of understanding what those trade-offs are for the safety benefits and improvements that we can provide through this project. So there's no kind of perfect answer. We're trying to find out what that best situation is to address not only people parking in front of their homes, but also providing these safety improvements. So it's a balancing act. And so it's not just one or the other. Those are all the considerations that we take into this. And Melissa's kind of walking us through the different types of facilities that we talked about in the last meeting to what that would mean. And so maybe that's a good segue to kind of talk about some of those issues in the next slide. Melissa, do you think that's a fair point?
I think that's great.
But we recognize how important that is, and that's certainly a strong consideration in this project.
Yeah, I thank you. I thank you for that response. Appreciate that, but I would like to at least for you to consider a group discussion on the protection of the residents along those two corridors who have nowhere to park. So I think that is totally a separate conversation to give them the same respect that we want to give to bikers.
Thank you, Dr. Minor-Terrell. I really do appreciate that. And my previous offer still stands to meet with you and the community association. I see Councilman Stokes is there to, kind of pulling those resources and kind of groups together. And we would love to have that conversation. So I think we can do that in a smaller group. We have about 83 people here. My offer still stands, and let's work with the councilman to make that happen. So thank you again. And we'll certainly continue to be in touch.
Hello, this is Tarina from DOT. I'm the Chief of Engagement. I'm also on the line, and I'm taking notes as some of these concerns come up so that we can flag some of these issues and follow up and breakout sessions later on with those impacted communities to have additional conversations. So I will make sure that my office reaches out to you and participates with your group as well as others that I know will need some additional conversation.
All right, so that actually was a perfect segue to the next topic that we were going to discuss. So we're kind of, you guys are way ahead of me. So in addition to parking, we are going to cover transit so we can hold our transit comments. And so we're going to work our way down this list. So speaking of parking, we know that's sensitive. I lived in Canton for a while, and boy, oh boy, is it a little tough to park there sometimes. So we thought that we would go through a quick exercise of understanding which of these fit exercises might have a big impact on parking. So we're taking this very seriously. And we discovered that there were 4 of these fit exercises that had a bigger impact than we were willing to take. And there was one on Washington that there was just too much impact on the parking. So as we go down our exercise, you'll notice I'm kind of knocking out the ones that we're thinking like, maybe this isn't quite right. And so again, there were 4 here on Wolfe and 1 on Washington that we were thinking probably not a good fit for this community and this neighborhood because we don't want to affect that many parking spaces.
So, Melissa, what were some of the kind of characteristics for that kind of, we're saying, hey, this is a huge impact on parking?
Yeah, so, I think we all know there's parallel parking on both sides of the street. So if we've removed parallel parking on one side of the street, wow, that's a big impact, right? So we did not want to do that. So you'll see that if we removed or if we just put in back in angled parking on one side of the street, we felt like that was too much. And we tested this on the east and west sides of both streets. We counted all of the existing parking spaces, and then we laid in new parking spaces that were back in angled because typically we get about 30% more parking spaces with the back in angle if it does fit. So we did different scenarios and tried to figure out how we could those impacts. And that's really what we're trying to do here. So we a very fair assessment to remove these cross sections from the running. So I think we'll, again, to folks on the phone, even though we kind of started our parking discussion already, But if there's anything different than we've already discussed, I will open this back up for 5 minutes. And if no one has any thoughts, then we'll keep moving.
Hi, sorry, I don't know if you can hear me. I was a bit late due to another meeting. Is there a map that shows what areas are being affected and what kind of biking you're planning to do, like bidirectional, like any type of bike barriers or anything like that?
Sure. So what we're doing right now is I'm kind of going through a bunch of different types of facilities on Washington. So there's a variety from bike lanes to buffered bike lanes, one-way cycle tracks and two-way cycle tracks on Wolfe and Washington. So we're just going through right now the process of how do we determine what the best fit and what is appropriate. Does that help? Okay.
Yeah, I didn't know if there was an actual map that you can show as well instead of just the images.
We're on Wolfe and Washington. I can show you really quickly, and then if anybody wants to ask
We will be doing
question.
a mapping exercise later on that goes through, the entire corridor. But yeah, we did start with that, and that was a big part of our previous meeting as well. And again, all of that information is on the website, and we'll also have an opportunity for people to comment on the map itself to highlight, where there are some, dangerous situations that you'd like to see changed, or where you see some opportunities where we can make some improvements.
Yep. So anybody else on parking? *6 if you are on the phone.
So, and sorry, I missed this as well, but what is being done about the parking?
So our goal is to minimize the impacts to parking. So as we make our design decisions, what we thought would be appropriate is to remove any cross section that would take out a lot of parking. So we're trying to pick something with a very minimal amount of parking loss.
So with the parking lots, are there any opportunities that the residents can park in areas like John Hopkins that already has like parking garages there as an exchange?
I think that's a great question. We haven't explored that, but I think certainly something we can put on the table, and kind of hearing from Councilman Stokes as far as a priority. I think that'd be a good kind of, a way to kind of negotiate with our other stakeholders and partners. I will say from the previous work that we've done, we provided 21 different types of options on these two streets with the different types of facilities as Melissa laid out. And what we're going through here is just kind of with the feedback that we've received from community thus far, really kind of eliminating the options where it's just a non-starter, where we want to get, again, we're not going to get 100% consensus, but we want to get to the right situation that balances those needs and considerations to deliver a safe, high quality bike infrastructure.
Can I say something? I don't know if y'all still on the phone.
Yes, sir. We hear you.
Okay. I think this is great. Everybody want the bike lane. My concern is if you go down to like the 800 block of Wolfe Street and all the new development and EDBI, there's no parking because Hopkins have garages and you can't make people park in the garage. So the residents already there have a problem. Then you have people on Broadway, Hopkins people, and it's not against Hopkins. But when you go straight up Washington Street, now you get to North Avenue, where a lot of my residents are seniors. We just did a infrastructure on North Avenue. Now the parking lane is now a bike lane. And if you drive in a bike lane, it's a $250 ticket. My concern is this is great, but we have not addressed the parking issue when we talk about putting bike lanes throughout this whole city. They did some bike lanes on Preston near Calvin Scruggs Funeral Home. Nobody told them. They just woke up and they hit a bike lane. The residents called me. They didn't call DOT. Biddle Street was the same way. Between Caroline down to Broadway, they just put a bike lane. Nobody talked to them. That's why we created that Broadway East and Midway, because we want to have a more conversation with DOT before they decide to say, we're going to put a bike lane. I think the community should be sitting at the table. I don't want them to become an advisory group to DOT. They should be in the room when you decide you want to do this. So my issue is, when are we going to address the parking issue. I have seniors who are handicapped. Y'all, you could North Avenue again. They put the state put in the new lanes, and you got the red lines. You can't park. Now you talk about taking parking spaces off of Wolfe and Washington Street. I have not gotten an answer about how do we take care of those residents that now cannot park in their block, more like in front of their door. Because I have a lot of seniors up there, and they 80-some years old. And I think this project is great, but we have not addressed the parking issue for residents that live there yet.
Okay, Councilman, hi there. No, put your camera back on. I want to speak to you. As for the other bike lanes, of course, they are a part of that was part of another project. That's not a part of the Wolfe Washington that we're working on now. So we can go offline and discuss that further. And for this project, I think that we're still in the earlier stages of trying to figure out the best options. So we're taking into consideration the need to eliminate any parking issues that we possibly can and trying to do this in the most responsible way. But there's going to be a lot of dialogue throughout this process, and we're hoping to make the best of something that's just pretty unique and new for a bunch of residents along the corridor.
This is Kathy from Midway CDC.
Hi, Kathy.
How you doing?
Pretty good.
I think I really appreciate this presentation, and I apologize that I wasn't part of the first meeting, so forgive me if my question is redundant, but I did put it in the chat where I was asking if there's an illustration that will depict, the entire Wolfe and Washington corridor with the different bike lane options. I know that's a lot, but I think it was mentioned that you're going to kind of eliminate the non-starters, and I don't know what number you'll get down to then, but let's say there are 8. Only because I'm trying to be a reformed car driver, and I do want to respect other modes of transportation. I get it, but I'm an old lady, so it's very unlikely that I'll be driving, bicycling a lot, unless it's got like 3 wheels and a buggy. But my point is just to see a couple of different illustrations for the whole stretch, so that I can figure out a different, intersections. What's it going to be like when we're turning, or traffic that's coming on, and also looking out for the bicyclists. That's very important to me, because we all have to change habits. So I was just wondering if there's going to be any of that.
Yeah, Matt, if you want to answer that question, when you're done, we'll go on to the next topic. So I'll give my presentation on this one after you answer.
Sure, Kathy. Yeah, we want to get it down to, a few top line concepts, within our scope. It is a lot of resources to do that for the entire corridor over a section of this size. And so that's why we try to, start off with this different fit exercise to really kind of get down to the appropriate option for us to take a deeper dive into that. And so we really try to get down to a couple of choices. And again, we're starting out at 21 through this corridor, including one-way to two-way conversions, and try to leave as many options on the table. We will be going through kind of a mapping exercise for, as we kind of take this forward, to highlight some of the areas of interest and need, and opportunities for improvements. That's coming up at the end of this, and we are kind of running against the clock here. I will offer to stay a little bit later so we can kind of take a little bit more details within that mapping exercise. But we are supposed to be out of here at 7:30. So I also just want to say, good to hear from you and Councilman Stokes as well, to thank you guys for being here and being at the table and representing those concerns. And again, we certainly will follow up with you in the office for that kind of detailed briefing, if we'd like to go into those further details. So I also just want to kind of keep us moving and keep us on track, but we have those offers, and that's kind of what we're trying to do here before we get into that really detailed snapshot.
All right.
Hey, before we move on, if you could just send me your new email address.
Okay, I'll do that.
Thanks, Kathy.
I had one comment that I wanted to enter that I couldn't find the raise hand button. From the safety perspective, and it intersects with parking. When I started cycling one of the biggest concerns I had was a car behind me and what they might do next, which took me out of the activity of riding. And I think especially new people who are new to biking in the street, who are getting off the sidewalk and taking the pedestrians out of their threat zone by riding on the sidewalk, they don't want to expose themselves to more threat of the unknown, especially on a hill where you're either going to gain a lot of speed going downhill or you're going to maybe lose a lot of speed going uphill, especially if you're not a seasoned cyclist and don't have the fitness built up yet. And one of the things that I've been most excited to see are lanes that are separated by more than a pylon. Pylons kind of give the impression that maybe it's safe, but they don't give the sense of security that yes, it is safe. With such fast moving traffic on both of those streets, and as somebody who lives within 200 feet of one of those streets, it would be my highest priority to see cars or barriers parked between the cycling lane and the otherwise fast moving cars. So while moving the car lane over to replace a moving lane of traffic still has some risk of cyclists getting gored, which is a real thing, it's substantially less likely on the pedestrian side of a car than it is on the driver's side. And especially having the cyclists be able to focus on what's in front of them instead of cars coming up behind them, there's more chance that they would be able to see or react to something like that without it pushing them further into traffic. So
thank you, Jeff. Yeah, I hear you loud and clear. And I think Liz talked a lot about that and kind of how the road is organized. With just that additional separation between the modes helps eliminate the confusion for people driving and for people biking, and also increases that safety. So I think Liz did outline that pretty well. But
yeah,
again,
without taking away parking, I think is what I think people like to hear.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. And then Melissa, I'm going to turn it over to you.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
So the next section here was.
I had my hand raised for a while, and I would like to weigh in on the subject before we go on, if that's okay. I live in the 200 block of South
Kimberly,
Washington.
you have 30 seconds. Thank you. Go ahead.
Okay. I live in the 200 block of South Washington. I agree with a lot of the comments that I've seen in the chat, but considering that a lot of people around here have renters, the 3 houses around me have 9 different cars. I came home at 2:30 today. I'm 2 blocks from my house. I don't feel safe at night. And if you get within 5 to 7 blocks of your house, if you come home after 5 p.m., then you're lucky. And I don't think it's minimizing the loss of parking. I think it has to be figured out, because otherwise the residents are just going to move out of the neighborhood. And maybe that's not a concern, but it is when you live here.
Thank you. Yeah, and again, we're balancing as well as, by providing alternative options, you can move more people in different ways that can eliminate congestion and the need for parking. So again, it's a balancing act, and as well as kind of balancing these different trade-offs as we kind of can take this project forward. So doing good. And I think we'll kind of get through some more of those, Melissa. Thank you.
Yeah, let's go and get caught back up here. So as we went through and we eliminated those that would impact parking, we also looked at this one little section over here, and this was our last one-way cycle track. So we thought, well, if it's one way on Wolfe, we need to have one way on Washington, and there wasn't an option left over. So we thought, well, we should probably take that guy off the table because he doesn't have a pair, and we need to make sure that we have north and south circulation for bicyclists. So I'm going to keep moving on to the next topic because I think this would spur more discussion than somebody not having a pair. So this one was really all about conflict with bus circulation. So we all know that as the bus goes down the roadway, if we have a cycle track here, then the bus, can't pull over to pick folks up. And we can certainly design around those things, but it's really just makes things a little complicated. It's a little bit difficult for people who might be in wheelchairs who are trying to access the bus. So we thought if it would work out and we could go ahead and eliminate these types of options, we would take anything off where we were in conflict with bus circulation. So our next little comment period is about bus circulation, and we're trying to eliminate that conflict. How do people feel about that? So anybody on the phone could star 6, and let's talk about buses. All right, so maybe no one on the phone to talk about buses. Matt, I don't know if you wanted to add anything else, but we could certainly keep moving.
Is there, I guess,
well, can you guys hear me?
No, there was a woman who started speaking first, and then I did hear you.
Yeah, this is Patrick. I am from the Jefferson Court community, which is at the 400 block of Wolfe Street and the 400 block of Washington Street. We also happen to be in the middle of the Johns Hopkins Medical Campus. Our neighborhood has nonstop ambulance, police cars, other emergency vehicles. We have many, many, many bus stops. We have Hopkins shuttle bus stops. We have the nonstop commuter bus to Columbia, to the Eastern Shore, and other faraway places. We have police vehicles that park all over the place regularly. We have multiple dedicated zip car parking spaces. If the 2 lanes of traffic is narrowed to 1 lane, how would that impact the ambulance traffic, which uses Washington Street to travel to the Hopkins emergency room? And if there were to be a vehicular breakdown or a traffic accident, how would that work? Same for Wolfe Street. That is how ambulance and emergency vehicles leave the Hopkins emergency room to go south. And I'm concerned that these issues, if they were not considered front and central at this point, at an early stage, when these issues become front and central later on, then the only sacrificial lamb would be the parking spaces in front of our houses. And that we would have not just fewer parking, we have no parking. We already are in competition with the 70,000 employees that work at Johns Hopkins Institution that do not want to pay $200 a month to park. They want to park on our street.
And sir, could you repeat your name, sir? I didn't quite catch it.
I'm sorry?
What is your name again, sir?
Patrick.
Hey, Patrick. Thank you. Thank you for that. I will just say, for any design that we do or any installation that we get in the street and install in the street, we must provide access for emergency vehicles. That is a priority for us as well. We must sign off and work with our partners, with the fire department, with the police department, with emergency vehicles of all kind. So that is a strong consideration for us. And we will have their approval to be able to have that access that is needed. So thank you for that comment, including our partners at MTA.
Matt, I can take, is it, you said Patrick?
Yeah.
I can take Patrick and we can have a sidebar discussion if you like.
I just want to make sure that while you guys have the hospital, the police, the fire department all at the table, that we're not left off the table and we become the sacrificial lamb.
I hear you. Thank you. And yeah, if you wanted to discuss that more, Tarana could follow up. But if not, we'll just continue to take other comments.
Yeah, sure. I have a quick question. So I actually am an architect and a planner. I used to live in Copenhagen so I understand biking. And I'm just a bit concerned because, not concerned, I wonder why and maybe you said it, there isn't a total number of parking spaces that you're taking away. It would be nice just to know that exact number. And like what type of planning you guys plan to use, like modular curbs, raised tracks, planters, high-speed buffers, because I see the images you have here just showing what the streets would look like, but even just showing like a map, because I know even connecting this back to the rails to trails. Like, I'm not sure how that happens. And even having biked in Baltimore, the streets just kind of cut off. So it would be nice to see more comprehensively what the plan is and the number of parking spaces, because I think that's probably a number that is known even in early phase of design. And I think it should be a bit more transparent, like having offline conversations tend to not happen. So, and I know that's potentially not all on you, but it would be nice to have that as a later discussion with everyone, with an exact plan.
Yeah, no, I hear you. Do we have the full parking inventory number? I think that we had that calculated. And again, we're not going into final detail for these things because we're trying to eliminate these cross sections to get us to a point where we can have that kind of more detailed conversation. And then you can have the true balance and true trade-off. But we're just kind of whittling this down now. And so we do have a number. I don't know the exact, however many, how many the total blocks versus the total amount of spaces.
Nathan has the number.
Well, actually, I was going to say, so guys, for everybody who's been seeing all of what I'm typing, now you know who's typing you the responses. Yes, we do have a parking tally for the entire corridor, which I have in a spreadsheet. What we don't have is a real firm picture of what the parking impacts would be because we haven't prepared a layout yet. So, I can present some of the general numbers that we had, if that's what you would like, Matt, which are just kind of based on a rough estimate of how switching parking from, say, parallel to back in or those sorts of options would yield.
Yeah, and so and Melissa kind of mentioned it kind of general. If you remove one side for a back or one side to a back angle parking, you would actually increase your parking on that one side. So it's, again, all of these are balancing out what our potential is.
Right.
And so that's kind of where we're trying to get to, Ariana. So I think we can kind of get to let's continue through this exercise and presentation, because again, we're not actually we're getting to the conversation, which I think is important. But I also think let's get to that point, and then kind of, I think there will be an opportunity to go into a little bit more detail there.
Exactly.
And if I could just offer very quickly, as we work through this design, we will be very transparent of what the parking impacts are. That's part of our design process. So when we do have a layout, we'll be presenting what's the existing parking yield, what is proposed with the design, what's the net loss. We'll be able to look at that on a block by block basis, so we'll understand where those impacts occur. But most importantly, if I were to share numbers tonight, they would not be the same numbers as after we prepare the design. What we've looked at are specifically high-level planning sort of evaluation, just so we can get an idea of what each of these options may do in terms of parking loss. And then we graded those as like very impactful to less impactful to what we consider sort of a no net impact. And we're only presenting options that have a very low to no net impact option.
Yeah, and I think this is also another great opportunity that, we do this exercise of fit. This is how we determine what we'll design, which is the next step that you were alluding to. And, we're going to show a typical section, which is what we think fits, but block by block, we have to make decisions based on the context. Is there a church there? Is there a restaurant there? Are there homes there? Are we near the hospital? We have to look at how the street varies in width a little bit. We're going to talk about traffic calming in just a moment and where you all might want to calm traffic. So that changes the layout, which I think we're going to reveal in our next meeting. So those are all great questions that we will get into the next time, where we will have a map, because we'll start looking at it block by block and figuring out what is going on. So this is just getting down to that consolidation. So
where are we at? Or do we have three? We have three options left here after we're kind of taking away these considerations of, loss of parking, transit. Where are we at here, Melissa?
Yeah, so it's really, we're kind of down to two now that we've gone through all of these trade-offs, and there's two left on Washington that we want to explore, because those haven't been knocked off the list based on the bus circulation or the safety concerns or parking impacts. So let's just take a minute and dive a little bit deeper into these two sections that were left for Washington. And like we said before, if we're going to put something on Washington, still going to traffic calm or improve or do something that will make Wolfe, just a little bit calmer. So that might just be these little bitty treatments at the intersections. So what we had remaining on our list that we have not yet figured out block by block how this works was a two-way cycle with a buffer. That seemed to be, the consistent thing there. And the differences are in the travel lane and the parking. So one of them has a travel lane with back and angle parking, and the other has a travel lane flanked by parallel parking on both sides. So, there's different trade-offs of every design, and we started thinking about, well, we're losing a travel lane on both. We're minimizing parking impacts as much as we can on both. The perceived travel lane width is, something to be thought about, but it's kind of an interesting thing. If you have a 12-foot lane next to a 4-foot buffer, depending on what that buffer is, how does that lane width feel? Does it feel really fast? Or does that buffer help us feel a little bit more protected? So we haven't picked the buffer yet. Is it flex post? Is it something else? We're not sure. We have to go through that in our next round of design. So with this over here, the travel lane, we have a 13-foot lane kind of flanked by 8 feet of parking. So this is where we get into coordinating with the hospital, the fire department. Are these things acceptable? Do you have enough width to pass? So that's everything that we get into next with those stakeholders. And then I just spoke about this, but level of protection for the bicyclists and predictable movement and organization. So we do want to get into our mapping exercise where we're going to talk about traffic calming and go down the corridor and collect some of your concerns there. But I will open this up just for 5 last minutes of comment, but we're going to do a hard stop at 5 so we can get into the map.
And Melissa, before I just have one other comment, to be completely transparent, right? Like we went through these 21 options. Our previous planning processes had identified Wolfe as the best link for a separated bike lane. We heard back from you with all of these different considerations, and looking at this, Washington is looking like the best candidate. And these are the kind of best fit designs that we have in place to address those concerns, but then also deliver that type of facility. And so again, the devil is in the details as far as the parking loss, with minimizing as much as possible. With here, this, I think, looking at the bottom section, you don't have any, right? And looking at the top section, we're able to provide more space on one side, but probably, I think on average, when I ran the numbers, and again, Nathan, we really need to get into the specifics, maybe 2, less than 3 spaces per block. And I'm just being completely transparent and upfront with folks. But again, the trade-off are these considerations, as well as working with our partners as far as access for emergency vehicles. So we think we have a pretty good top 2. Now we want to hear back from you all. Do you agree? And again, thinking about through those trade-offs and those benefits, along with, again, that's where we're at with this conversation. So again, excited to hear. So.
And as a reminder, *6 if you're on the phone.
Well, I have a general question if you guys can hear me.
Yep, we can hear you.
Okay, so is this completely finalized? Is just having either or an option, Wolfe or Washington, and not both?
So for the bicycle facility, we really think these are the best candidates going through this process, through this further evaluation. However, we're going to continue to have a dialogue going through a mapping exercise as far as traffic calming treatments that we can provide.
I'm sorry, Nat. I think he's asking, is it possible to have the facility split between both Wolfe and Washington? Carla, correct me if I'm incorrect.
Yeah, basically.
Are you asking, can it be on both to minimize the existence of the bike trail being all on one or the other?
Right.
No,
What I'm saying is, can
okay.
we have the bike lanes on Wolfe or Washington instead of being on both?
Well, okay,
That's what
yeah,
This
this-
is what
that's
this is
what
exactly
this-
what we're saying. We're saying our best candidate is on Washington only.
Oh, okay.
We had gone into this thinking Wolfe would be the one from previous processes, but looking more closely at this and hearing back from you, the community, that Washington was the best fit to provide the safe infrastructure as well as minimize the impacts. And then we're going to further explore, because Wolfe will not have any treatments. We're going to look at some ways, some other opportunities to make that road safer in tandem, because this looks like the best place for our bike facility. Does that make sense?
Yes.
Okay. Thank you, sir.
Hey, Trina, real quick, this is Councilman Stokes. I don't want to hold you up, but I was just reading in the chat, and somebody said they come home and they got groceries in their car and they can't park. Is DOT, because they give you ticket. If you double park and you got flashes, if you add these bike lanes, is DOT going to relax that? Because if I run in the house with 2 bags and come back outside and I got a $152 ticket because I can't park because they put the bike lanes in, is DOT going to relax that? Because that's going to happen. So if anybody from DOT can ask that, because if somebody double parking, are they still going to be ticket people who can't park because of bike lanes and they taking the groceries in the house?
Councilman, so that's the concern you're raising is an issue all over Baltimore. I mean, even where my house is in Northwood, you're lucky to get on the street, let alone be able to take your groceries in from the front, and have the fear of getting a ticket if you do it through the back. But let's continue to talk about that and see what we may be able to do, especially as it relates to the portions of the roadways that may be closer to like the commercial sections, closer to Hopkins, and the new development. But thank you for raising that point. We will continue to engage on that issue. In fact, I've taken note of all your issues, so we'll be in conversation, sir.
Am I able to say anything?
We hear you.
Okay, so for me, and I'm listening to everything, and some words are trigger words for me, like trade-offs, or we're taking it in consideration. And one of the things that's big for me as not only a community president but a mental health worker is safety issues. So I think what and one of the things Kimberly mentioned it very well, for that area, for the area that we're speaking about, and moving further to South Clifton Park, safety is a huge issue. So I don't know how important it is to have bike lanes, especially through those areas of where community and homeowners expressing, that's not a good idea for our community, because I think we should deal with our safety issues first. As far as the crime is extremely high. And if we ignore it and say, well, we want beautiful bike lanes, then we're still perpetuating a situation that hasn't been changed yet. And then funding can be put into more things like that, opposed to bringing that down, then adding a bike lane that's not necessary. And again, I didn't hear anybody speak to why do we have so many red light cameras if we're speaking about biking as to safety. So the red light cameras are charging us heck of money to slow down. So then are we going to get rid of them and put in the bike lanes, which I know it's a no, but why do we have to have the bike lanes? And who is making the decisions that we need the bike lanes? On this call, it's over 70 plus people. I don't know any of them. They don't live in my community. Some are in the community, and the ones that are saying we don't want the bike lanes. So who's making these decisions that thinks that it's best for us to have it? And then to have plans and charts, it seems like we're not being heard, we're just being listened to, because you've already made a decision that this is what you want, and we're community members saying we don't want it. So instead of showing the plans and the maps, it's like speak to the community to find out first, what do you want before you make a graph and a map. And then another thing I asked was, what was the data on saying the safety, or, the graphs that say this is safer bike lanes? For me, I own an outpatient mental health facility.
Ms. Carter.
Bus passes. Yes,
I'm
ma'am.
sorry. I know we have to move on. I am totally willing to engage in the conversation.
Because I would love for you guys to come to our community meeting so that you can have this conversation, because it's just, not good.
But even beyond that, there's we understand the issues. We're just not going to be able to give you full details on all of those issues tonight. So this
Yeah.
is the second of one meeting, but there are many more to come. So we will continue that dialogue. Rest assured.
And I
I know
thank you.
it,
I just think that, yeah, I thank you. I just think that writing out a plan and showing it in a graph is not necessary, opposed to saying, let's continue to dialogue with the community and then we create a plan from there. Opposed to saying, like, these are the trade offs. We shouldn't have any trade offs. We need our parking. We need safety. We don't want to get shot going in the house because somebody wants to ride a bike. And I thank you guys. And I'm going to continue to listen. Yeah. I know
we'll
I don't
be
want
in
to get
touch.
shot going in the house. All right,
We'll be in
thanks.
touch, man.
Okay,
Thank you, Mrs. Carter. I appreciate that. I will just say, we can't solve all the city's problems with a bike facility. I get that. That's not my role within, our government. My role is to provide that safety, safe streets by making it easier and safer for everyone to bike in this city. This isn't just a one-off as far as exploring these trade-offs. This is a particular project process that we're going through by exploring these options. But this is many years in the making and establishing a citywide vision. My goal is piece by piece to help realize that vision with the resources that we have. And oftentimes, the cost of this type of facility, in contrast to other many different projects the city has going, provides way more bang for your buck as far as an investment and increase in safety for people on this roadway than other projects. So relatively inexpensive to, again, address the bigger issue, at least traffic safety along this roadway and the opportunity for people to get around in a different way and feel comfortable. And hopefully we deliver a community amenity as well in that sense. So, again, I think we did have a mapping exercise. I have offered to go over our time of 7:30. I recognize that it's 7:22 now. I just want to take, if there are any final comments on these trade-offs in the chat, Nathan, that we should highlight. Are there some themes or trends as far as the questions that we're hearing from in the chat? Or are there any kind of final things that we can kind of say, let's take a look at the map together and kind of go through some of the other items that we have on our agenda tonight?
Yeah, one of the big themes that we had related to resident permit parking, which we haven't really discussed, and that's something we'll have to take a look at. That issue was generally concentrated around the hospital center. There's been a lot of discussion about the parking. Again, we don't have.
I think it's valuable, and these are good points and opportunities to explore with the other partners that we're working with the city itself. And again, it goes outside the parameters of this project, but we're going to do our due diligence. And as a city employee, offering that up for the different agencies that we can help start conversations with to address other issues like public safety. And again, the permit parking is one that kind of finds itself outside of my realm, but where we can be a resource.
One of the other topics that's been discussed that I've responded to once or twice at least was short-term parking, or the need to take things in from your car to your house, and the delivery vehicles, which is something that I've indicated we'll be taking a look at as we get into the design.
That's very interesting. Yeah, let's definitely keep that in thought as we move forward.
That's an increasingly important consideration as we develop these types of facilities, especially with more delivery to homes. The UPS truck, the Amazon truck, those are always considerations, and a consideration we had when we scoped the project as it is.
Absolutely.
So those are some of the big items that I can highlight.
Sorry, I've been on. I'm just trying to raise my hand for like 50 minutes.
Hi, this is Doris. This is Doris from Broadway East again. I'm glad we're having this conversation, but I'm kind of troubled. I'm reading in the chat that the cyclists are feeling like they're being attacked and there's no appreciation for them. I don't think this conversation is about bikers. I think the conversation is about the safety for all people and making sure that everybody is respected at the table. I doubt if anyone on here who's expressing concerns about parking is alluding to we don't like bikers. We would never do that. This is about making sure everyone is safe. So I hope we don't leave with that kind of feeling. Because
I don't think so.
I
don't think so, Doris. Thank you, Doctor. No, I don't think so. I just also want to say that the parking has taken up a lot of the conversation. And again, we're working through that and appreciate the dialogue from everyone's perspective. And certainly we want to deliver the best bike project that we can for this area.
Yeah, no,
Matt, let's get to that caller.
And I heard there was a hand up. There was a hand up from someone
Yeah,
else.
there's a gentleman trying to get through.
Yeah, can we hear from him? Sir, you had your hand up for quite some time and you had a final
I
comment?
think that was me. I think obviously we spent a lot of this conversation about parking, and it's certainly a concern of the community. My concern is a lot of these trade-offs are already existing. There's already parking issues. There's already issues with FedEx blocking lanes. There's already issues with speed. And so I think the biggest thing is if this plan focuses on installing a bike lane or a facility only on Washington Street, this was pitched to the Upper Fells Community Association as, traffic calming on Wolfe Street, like last week. So like that street is still a raceway. Washington is still a raceway for vehicular traffic. And like we pay for, to some of the points we pay for red light cameras, like you shouldn't be blowing through red lights and you shouldn't be doing 47 miles an hour on a residential street. The problem is cars. Cars are the problem, period. So that's how this needs to be approached.
Daniel, I appreciate that comment. Thank you. We actually did want to address what you were saying. I certainly hope that this wasn't misportrayed as far as, I think as far as Wolfe, we certainly are looking at both Wolfe and Washington through this study and design process. We wanted to, after this kind of, again, we got to this point, we know Washington is the best place for this, but we don't want to leave Wolfe out. And that's where we wanted to go next through this mapping exercise to explore what we could offer. Because again, we got to a point where we didn't know what was going to happen. And now we feel like we do have some strong candidates. Now, what else can we do to provide those traffic calming benefits for the sister street of Wolfe? So Melissa, please walk us through what we can potentially offer here for that.
Yeah, sure. And I'm just going to buzz through these rather quickly.
Yeah, it's 7:28, and again, we have promised to stay a little bit longer. We will provide all of this information on the website. The recording is up. These slides will be up, and there are many different ways to comment. So if you can't stay on, apologize for this going over. We'll just plan to go over every time. So we'll just put that into how we organize our meetings. But go ahead.
Yeah, just a quick look. So there's a lot of different ways to calm traffic. So we tried to pull out some things that we thought might be suitable. So you've probably seen these painted curb extensions around town. There's a couple in Little Italy. So that's just where we do paint and flex posts. It just narrows and pinches at the intersection. It does help narrow those lanes and calm the traffic. Some other ways that can be done are artistically. So if you paint that space instead of just that double white stripe, that's something that can contribute to the character of the community, but also provides that pinch. It's a project that the community can work on together. So those are fun. There's a couple of those in the city as well. Just a hard curb extension. You've probably seen some of these in Upper Fells. This is where we bump out the curb, kind of hug the area of parking. So it shortens crossing distance for pedestrians, allows them to see a little bit better before crossing the street. So it helps calm traffic. And then it's also great just for pedestrians, like I said, for sight and shorten crossing distances, which is great when you have a stroller or you're in a mobility assisted device. Some of those bulb outs do have vegetation in them. And so those can be stormwater or those can just be another type of planting. So really this is where the community can dig in and let us know what their preferences would be with these types of treatments. This looks a little bit similar to that bulb out, but what this is turn hardening. So what it does is when you're making a turn around the corner, the more space you have to make the turn, the faster you can go. So if we do this little turn hardening, what that does is it makes you really slow down in your car so that you can make that maneuver. So any and all of these things, we're being very mindful of the type of vehicle that is traveling on the roadway. And we as engineers have to do actual calculations for turning radius movement. So we'll be very cognizant of that. And then all of these really contribute to that theme that Liz talked about earlier, which is lane narrowing. So that pinching to make cars slow down. So those are just some of the tools we thought we would present those, because within our map that you can either hang out with us and go through the map with us, or I'm going to give you guys some links, and this is also available on the project website. We want to have more solid input that is in specific locations. That's going to really help us design at that granular level that you guys have been talking about, because that's our next step. We have to figure out if this works in the real world, block by block. So Nathan is going to copy the website one more time in the chat box. He's also going to provide a direct link to the map that I'm about to show you. So again, for those of you on the phone, the website is baltimorebikeways.com/Wolfe-Washington-Bikeway. So if you do go to the website, I'll just show you guys real quick who are with me on the screen. There is a new, just opened today and fresh, a new comment map tab on the website. And so if you click on that and scroll down, we'll be posting the presentation tomorrow. And once we download the recording from tonight, we'll post that up on the website as well. But if you click on comment map, it will bring up this screen right here. And so you can either zoom in and out on the map on the web page, or I suggest there's a little link that says, please use this comment map. And if you click on that, it will open a new tab in your browser and you come to this map. So the idea with the map is that you can click and hold to scroll, just like if you're on Google Maps. And there's a little box that will pop up on the left. There is a red challenge button and a blue opportunity button. In truth, it doesn't matter to me which button you use. If you accidentally put an opportunity in the challenge, it doesn't matter. We're going to read all of the comments. But it's really simple. You just click on top of the red button within this box on the left side of the screen. And then you just click and unclick. And then it will say, click to add a point. So I can zoom in and out. And then it is very easy for me to click on the map, and then a little window pops up. So within that window, it does say comment, and you can put your comment in that box and then just unclick, and it's saved. So if you put something in the wrong place and start typing and it's in the wrong spot, you can just, in your comment, tell me where you want the comment, or you can just say delete and put in another dot if you want to. So if you are viewing this map, you're going to also be able to see your neighbor's comments. So you can click on their comment, you could read that mine said test, which is what I just typed in. And then you can just go and put a comment next to your neighbor. Maybe you agree, maybe you disagree. So what we would like to do, if anybody wants to hang out, you're welcome to hang with us, and we can put some of these challenges and opportunities on the map. But what I wanted to do just real quick, right before we went into that, is one more time for those of you on the phone, if you need to comment, again, the website has a comment form on it, and I just read that out. We also have an email, which is dot-community@baltimorecity.gov. Or we have a phone number that you can call and leave a comment, which is 443-984-4095. So I thought, Matt, if you wanted to say a few words and either close out or open this up for comments on this map, we can go ahead and do that.
So what I'd like to do is, yes, we'll stick around till 8 o'clock to kind of go through the map. You can explore it on your own. and provide those comments for us on the website. So if you don't want to hang around, you're ready to eat some dinner, do your thing. You have that opportunity to access. You have these different opportunities to call in, to email us, use the comment form, or just dive in and just do it on your own. For those that don't want to use the website and just want to, tell us your problem areas, we're going to go through the map. Tell us the different types of needs for traffic calming and kind of safety issues that we should be aware of as we kind of whittle down, these kinds of fit exercises into more of some more detailed display. This will really help us within that design next phase. So thank you, everyone. I really appreciate you guys taking the time. We'll go through the map and continue to get your feedback. We really appreciate everyone sticking through this conversation. And again, we'll continue to do our best, again, with dealing with the technology, but also, doing our best to deliver the best bike facility and also deliver the safety improvements for the entire corridor and all the different neighborhoods, that makes Baltimore great. So thank you all. All right, shall we dive into the map? I think we're going to start from the north at Sinclair Lane and just kind of go intersection by intersection. Certainly the intersection conflicts are where we're going to see the most, let's say, challenges or opportunities. Melissa?
Sure, I'll take them all. Take any.
All right. Do we have any comments as far as what's got, from North Avenue, from Sinclair to North, and then to Lafayette? Again, taking your comments as far as any of the different types of traffic calming treatments that we walked through, other items that you think would be useful, and again, being and looking at both streets. But in particular, I would say for Wolfe, especially for those traffic calming treatments. It's not exclusive. Any comments?
Are you asking what we want to see there, or in terms of like the bump outs or the lanes?
Yep. Okay. Yeah, absolutely. Any of those options or other options that we're not thinking of or didn't present. Or just say, hey, this is a really dangerous intersection. Please do something.
Can you zoom in a little bit more?
Yeah, let's zoom in a couple more.
Thank you.
All right, so we're starting here in Sinclair, and then we're going to move our way down. So the comments I've heard on this northern section from other community members is, how do we access from here? Where does it go? So we're at Clifton Park. The St. Lo Drive connection is a really important one for connecting other neighborhoods to be able to access this corridor, right? So that's been noted. We are working on some proposals along with Rec and Park to make a connection through there, and we're going to continue to take that forward. But that's something that we've heard consistently. We want to be aware of that. And again, we don't want this. We want to be able to access the park and then beyond. Okay, now we see the library here. Again, a place that we need to make accessible on East 20th. Any comments as far as this portion? Okay, so we have them listed as an important stakeholder, and so we'll reach out in our engagement process to see if they have any thoughts for their facilities. I'm doing all this transportation for the library. It's a library. All right. North Avenue was brought up previously. Yeah, I'm certainly a major roadway, major transit corridor. Do we have any comments for North Avenue?
I think you have to reach out to the church as well, Faith Angelical.
That is a great point. Thank you. Hearing none, it sounds like people want to explore this on their own. We're not getting a lot of comments other than kind of make sure that we're talking to the people in the organizations that are there. And so we certainly will continue to do so.
Can I ask another question? Because I know you all are trying to make sure we accommodate folks who may not, have access to a computer or
That's
maybe.
right.
So are like little postcards or anything, have those gone out to maybe some of the residents in the area just to let them know about some of the questions you're having?
No, we're really reliant, on our partners, our community organizations, as well as our council offices and their staff. So, that offer, trying to get that word out as much as possible. But we've really shifted gears away from postcards just because of the investment of that. We would certainly like to do some kind of pop-ups in a safe and social distance way. But again, the city rules don't allow us to do so. We're exploring all of our options in this new way, Kathy, but that's just been one where it's been really difficult. We've had some issues with our mailers and it's just not being effective. We're getting more participation in these virtual meetings than we would with through our mailers. It's just we're trying to balance that. But I think you're right. It's we'll have to figure that out. I don't have a great answer for you.
Yeah. This is Councilman Stokes. Thanks for the extra work. I really appreciate it.
Appreciate you sticking with us, Councilman. And we still have 43 people here, so thank you, all of you.
Right?
Well, I'm thinking, because I know you all do send the email and, we have these visuals. I'm just wondering what it might look like in the flyer form in terms of, the resolution, so that perhaps we can have some flyers and give to some of the residents, just to let them know their input is wanted. And
that
so
we can do.
Yeah. I'm trying to be cost effective.
Yeah, we are too. We're trying to figure it out. And that's a great recommendation.
Yes, Kathy. So it's a great recommendation. It's some of the things we're just going around trying to figure out what works best. I'm concerned, of course, about a lot of our seniors and not having access, as well as those that are just not tied in to the technology. But it's just been an extremely difficult year, as you all know, and we are trying to not keep things standing still while we're going through what we're going through with the pandemic, but trying to figure out how we can engage as many people as possible. So that's why I asked you for your information. We're going to utilize the resources. We need some help to get the word out.
I'm preparing myself for the extra work, but I do want to connect you all with Miss Yancey from Recon Park. She deals with the seniors, and she's been doing some virtual meetings with some of the seniors and by phone, and she's trying to expand that. So that might be a good way to connect with seniors in this particular area. So maybe we can connect with her and see.
That's wonderful. Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. And is it Yancey or Nancy?
Yancey.
Okay, great. Yeah, let's follow up and we'd love to make that connection.
Okay.
Thank you, Kathy.
Sure.
All right, we're going to block the block here. We're now at Lafayette and Wolfe and at Washington. And then we have Chapel kind of running in between. Moving down to Landvale. Are our Fells Point community really holding on here? That's what I'm thinking. All right, we have St. Paul Community Baptist Church there. So again, let's make sure we follow up with our stakeholders along the corridor. We have that list, and we will continue to follow up. Moving down to Oliver Street.
Good.
Hey, we hear something for Oliver.
Okay. It's been a while.
All right, I think we need to meet someone. Is there a comment for the project? All right, we're at Oliver. We have Northgate coming through. This is an interesting segment with that diagonal street crossing. All right, somebody's got to have something for this for
I have
the
a
gay
question.
intersection.
I have a question for your expertise. What the heck do you guys suggest here? Because this is a really, really, I mean, Gay Street is nuts anyway. But now when you're intersecting with Wolfe and we're talking about bikes and all, what kind of safety, measures would you put in here to protect everyone?
I agree. No, again, we have all of those different types of treatments and more. But I love the comment. It's nuts already. It is absolutely crazy, and that kind of cross intersection. So thank you for speaking up on this and the need for this, because it is absolutely it's a unique situation within this corridor, right? So we're going to have to be creative to provide, again, the safety improvements necessary. So.
Those types of intersections are terrifying for cyclists who are not seasoned. And if the alternative to some form of protected infrastructure is the street lane, that's a non-option for more than 99% of prospective road users.
I have a comment.
I will just say there may be a special type of treatment for that kind of intersection, right? And again, that's where we see the most conflict. So we really try to highlight those with increased visibility. I do want to get to the point where we're talking more separation other than just flex posts that provide more of a buffered protection. And again, it's balancing out those costs and also the safety improvements, where maybe it is we just need that one intersection, a real hard kind of as a real hard buffer as far as what do you call it, the turn hardening, right? Like some of those elements that are much more sturdy and really have more of a physical barrier to protect people in those areas.
Yeah, I think anything in the 30 to 60 degree turn angle is the red zone.
Yeah.
So those 45 degree seem to be a little bit better visibility.
Totally.
There's a compromise between visibility and speed. And when you have these really sharp cusps, you get a combination of all the worst outcomes. So I hate spending somebody else's tax dollars, but I think that's.
But at a particular intersection like this is where it's most needed. Yes, focusing on that area with the investment of the overall project. Yeah, I hear what you're saying.
A couple of news reports for struck cyclists or struck family with a stroller or some other wheeled device is going to blow really bad optics on the entire cycling infrastructure.
Yeah, and we already have enough of those already. So, that's why we're doing this.
I have a comment. I'm sorry.
Go ahead, Councilman.
I have a comment, and I'm working with Liam Davis and Crochet. There is speeding already on Gay Street going up Preston Street. There is a sign that says no turn on red, everybody do it. The traffic coming north and south on Gay Street. If you come down Middle Street, they're now riding which is supposed to be one lane, 2 lanes, and they find out it's just one lane. They get over to the curb and almost create an accident. There are signs that's up at the light that has absolutely on them because they all wore out. And they tell you when it's 2 lanes before 6 and 2 lanes after 6. And now that's already a problem. I think we really need to look at that Gay and Wolfe Street area because I'm getting calls from residents in the 1700 block. They done ran into their cars coming up Gay Street. They done ran into people's cars coming out Biddle Street to Gay Street. So, and it all starts from Biddle and Caroline to coming out Gay Street and turning right on Preston Street and coming out Gay Street. The signs, metal signs that have coming north or south of Gay Street, that had nothing on it. So people in the 2 lane at a rush hour don't know it's 1 lane. And when it's 1 lane, 2 lanes, it's 1 lane because there's nothing there. So I think we really need to look at Gay and Wolfe Street a lot.
You stole what I was going to say, Councilman, because I was going to ask about that kind of rush hour lane. I never understood it. I try to avoid it as much as possible because I didn't want anyone to hit me. So how much conversation has been had, I guess, already about, I don't want to make decisions in somebody else's neighborhood, but just looking at the need for that rush hour lane.
Kathy, I agree with you on that. This is Doris again. We also need to take the traffic off of the 1200 block of Gay, which is a nightmare that also intersects and comes into Preston and Gay. I am so afraid that we have some serious injuries at that intersection. I know we've made the complaint before, but I do think we need to put it on the table for major consideration. And it does greatly impact the townhouse residents in Eager Park who also are impacted by that flow of traffic.
So, folks, we will. It's a separate from this meeting kind of conversation.
Yeah.
And like you said, you talked to Grishay. We'll continue to have that conversation in the background. I'm well aware. I've been in East Baltimore my whole life, and I still get confused when coming down at different hours. So I understand the need for additional safety there and signage. And so give us an opportunity to take some information back and try to see what we can accomplish on that front.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to keep it moving. We have I see 9 minutes, 10 minutes left. We're looking at Preston. And let's keep going. Obviously, it's paired with Biddle. All right, hearing no comments. Does that sound like Gay was the big one there? But we will be looking at this on a block by block basis.
And I just want to add too, Doris, don't you have that greening project also along Wolfe Street?
Yeah, that's correct. The greening project is there for both Wolfe and Washington. And we have 2 triangles under development at Preston at 1758. We also have that triangle there behind the 1200 block A. So there are 3 triangles under greening.
So if we could just put that in the opportunity, I know we also have a note taker here. So if we miss it, yeah, Melissa's just going to drop that in there. We'll get it to the right place. And yeah, we'll see how we can kind of partner. Leverage our investments. Yes, who is this?
Hi, this is Alan.
Hey, Alan.
Hi, so there are also multiple projects that are going on around the Eager Park area, the Broadway East area. We're working on traffic calming. We're working on mural projects. Are those going to be affected by this bike lane? And are those going to change? Have you spoken to any of the developers and what because they've already have plans to put traffic calming areas on certain parts of the bike lane. So will those be taken down? Will those be affected with your planning, or are you going to be working with them?
Our goal is to be working with them. If they're in design, and we're having our review team, then they know that our project is coming. And so we can kind of, alert where that work is overlapping. But yeah, we certainly want to be in tandem with those types of treatments and with the proposed facility. But any additional information, we don't know every single project that's going on, within the city or let alone this corridor. So the more information we have to make sure that we're all on the same page as we go forward with this. Again, we're only at 30% design. We still have a long ways ahead of us to get to the final 100% design. And that's going to be a big part of it.
Because there's a lot of projects going on that this bike lane will be affecting those projects as well. So we should collaborate with everyone in every area as needed.
Agreed. And Alan, were there some organizations that we can reach out to as far as, were there any particular developments? You'd mentioned Eager. I didn't quite catch everything.
Eager Park.
Broadway
East.
Broadway East, okay. Okay, great. And I want to learn more about these murals when we get there. All right, we won't impact the murals. I promise you.
We had a meeting prior to this, and we also talked about that as well. So
awesome.
Those are also in that area, so we should also be considering those things.
Great, and that's kind of what we're talking about, the kind of cultural aspects of the neighborhoods, and retaining that. And for us, it's providing more access to be able to see these things and participate in that culture. So great to hear all the great things that are going on there, and we'll work with those neighborhoods to get those specifics on any kind of developments that are upcoming or other projects, so that we're in tandem.
Great, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
I had a quick question that I wasn't able to jump in about Preston Street. The railroad tracks there, are they still operational?
I don't know.
There.
Actually, thank you. That's a great question. I have no idea.
So my fear is, and I have done this before, when you hit railroad tracks with a bike, a road bike in particular, at like a 35 or 45 degree angle, it tends to want to pull your wheel and it will flip you off the bike.
Hey, Chris, I think that's an elevated line. That's the Amtrak line there.
It's elevated? Yeah. Okay, thank you. I usually go north Clifton Park up Edison Highway, so I've never taken this way before.
Oh, no. You better not get on those tracks.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
I was wondering.
Yeah, Chris, that's totally different. Yeah. That's not the tracks.
Chris, you'll kill yourself if you get on them.
All right, if we could zoom out, I know we got some good intersections there, just a little bit, so we can kind of move a little bit further down and maybe just do corridor segments, because we're not quite further south, and we'd like to wrap this up here shortly. So, are there folks in the kind of in these neighborhoods south of Orleans, kind of Upper Fells, folks that want to highlight some certain intersections within your neighborhood?
So this is Matt from Eager Park. I didn't get a chance to stay when you were up in our section.
Hey, Matt, I'm trying to move along, but I want to hear you.
Okay, so just really quick, I'd appreciate the facilities on Preston to be continuous with the cycle track that goes north and south. I don't know if there are plans for those to communicate, but that would be greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Yeah, we want to make sure we want to make that connection, and so that's why we have the east-west. It's not that kind of all ages and abilities type of bike lane, right? It's still, there are still some concerns, but it's an option for people, and we want to make sure that we connect that option north-south. So yeah, it unlocks a lot more opportunities for people using going east-west and into north-south. So that's the kind of ideal here, Matt, and certainly our objective.
Just a quick question about maintenance. I know typically in cities we don't. What does that maintenance look like currently for the bike lanes? In terms of just like cleaning, because I know we have regular street cleaning, but like with cycle, especially if we're doing like a protected track, how is that getting maintained just to make sure that people aren't just throwing trash and debris there?
It's true. We certainly as a city have some issues with trash pickup. I recognize
Yeah, that's actually on my list, Ariana. I actually thought about that as we just been going through the presentation. So I have flagged that on our end to investigate a little further how we can collaborate with the Department of Public Works to make sure that we're also able to address street sweeping. So rest assured, it's already in my follow-up queue. You kind of read my mind.
We have purchased specific vehicles for this type of sweeping and cleaning in all of our streets. And this is part of the street, are on a regular maintenance schedule. When it comes to bike lanes, that's not always a top priority and sometimes gets lost in the shuffle. We've certainly worked to develop a maintenance plan with the flex posts, the striping, as well as the cleaning we're strengthening that. I'm not saying we're 100% there yet, but we're certainly making improvements. And yeah, we want to build a great facility, and it's got to stay that way for a long time. And so we got to keep it clean, we got to keep it clear, and we got to, if it gets damaged, we got to repair it. So that's a whole other story, though. So I appreciate the thought there, and we're going to continue to work on it.
You're absolutely right, Matt. And I think until we get later on in the design phase, we'll be able to determine how to best approach the maintenance piece of it. Right now, things could go so many different ways. It's kind of hard to say how we're going to maintain them. But understanding that there's a need to, we have the capacity to, and we will partner with our other agencies to make sure that that's getting done.
Yeah, let us get this designed first, please. So, all right, can we move a little further south here? Some great comments. All right, so I see people are in there making some notes. That's great. Are there any kind of final comments before we close it out here?
Quick question. Sorry. Is there any way that you guys are also adding in like development with the Baltimore cities? I'm blanking on what it's called. The Baltimore bikes. Like, are they somehow stops integrated into this design? Or
the Baltimore bikes?
I forgot what they're called.
So I know that we have
bikes?
The electric bike program.
Bike shares.
So we no
Lime
longer
now. We don't have the bike share anymore.
That's right. So we do have a scooter. We have a dockless vehicle program at DOT, and the data is very strong as far as how people ride and use those scooters. Is that people feel safer when they have an option to use a protected bicycle facility in lieu of riding on the street. So there's some good data as far as how it's used and people feeling safe and comfortable on those dockless vehicles. I will also say that we now have expanded not beyond scooters, where previously we had a bike share program that had failed and was not successful. The scooter program has been wildly successful and is getting a lot of use and is in areas all across the city. And so there's a very equitable distribution. They have now opened up with Lime, has now started to offer some electric bikes. So there's I think only about 75 bicycles at this moment, but they're out there. And again, we're keeping all of those people in mind when we're building this facility, because we know it will get used and because it will be safer for people to ride in. Great comments and questions there. Thank you so much. All right, this is the last call for comments. Please go to the website. We have all of the information in the chat. You guys are strong. You guys held in there with us. This is really greatly appreciated. I'm super grateful for the feedback. We're going to continue to work hard on this and be aware that we'll be coming back to you with some more details on this. And again, we'll go through your feedback. Again, super grateful.
We appreciate you. We appreciate you. Thank you again for allowing this to take place today and hearing our voices.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you so much.
Thank you all. Have a nice
Be well. Take care.